Welcome to the Gospel Activist Podcast in association with Stepping Out Ministries, where we explore how we proclaim the gospel of Jesus Christ in our modern context. Here is your host, Pastor and Evangelist Kevin Henry.
Hi, this is Pastor Kevin, and welcome back to the Gospel Activist Podcast. And this is our 107th episode. And today on the program, I want to share a little update on ministry of what's going on with our ministry with the church plant, New Life Christian Community, as well with what's happening with Stepping Out Ministries going forward. And first of all, I want to thank you all so much for joining me on the program, and also so much for your support in viewing each podcast. And it's been fun to be able to put this podcast together. And my hope and desire has always been with this podcast, as well as the other two podcasts that I used to run, was to help equip people in how to share their faith, but also deal with different topics of the day as well, encouraging each other in the faith and growing as Christians, and encourage the church to grow to be a biblical church as well. So first I want to share with you about New Life Christian Community. And it's been a while since I've done an update on our church plant, but things are going relatively well. And as you all know, these days are challenging days with the COVID virus going around and all the concerns about that, as well as it's been a hard day and age just to reach people with the gospel, but even more so with the COVID virus. But God is still faithful, and we have seen how God is preparing us for the harvest. And we do believe that in our community of Onaway and area, that we're going to soon see a harvest of new disciples for Jesus Christ. And we're in the process as a church now of getting equipped for that. I've been putting together a discipleship seminar, which we plan to live stream at some point when that is complete, and started to do that teaching in our church. And so I'll have a link down in the description for our church website and our church YouTube channel. So if you want to join in on that seminar workshop, you're more than welcome to join through the live stream for that. But there's about 5 things I want to share with you about our church. First is we have put together a new outreach tool called Getting Right with God. And I'm not the one who prepared it. Another person in our church has put that together, and is actually a revamp of Peace with God. And the individual in our church who put that together has done an excellent job. And so if you go to our church YouTube channel and or website, you can see that whole length video. It's about an hour and a half long. And this gives a clear gospel presentation. Talks first about who God is, why Jesus came, what is this Bible about, and how one can be saved from their sins. And this person has done a great job. His name is Keith. And I invite you to check that out. And especially if you know someone who doesn't know Jesus Christ as their Lord and Savior yet. It is a great tool to be used to hear the gospel message, and maybe you might even answer some questions you may have as yourself. So I encourage you to use that tool. Again, the link will be in the description down below for the church website. You can find it through there, or a link to our YouTube channel. And either way, you can see the presentation that way. Again, that's called Getting Right with God. It is something we're planning on live streaming and doing every month up through the month of May. And so the last Tuesday of each month, we will be live streaming it. And so you're welcome to join us in that. And it is our hope and desire too that to use this tool to reach the lost with the gospel of Jesus Christ. And even though we want to focus on our area in Onaway and area, we do recognize that God can use this tool beyond our area. And so if you can use that tool, you're welcome to invite your friends or family members to view the video. The second is that we have been seen as a church that God has been giving us great favor in our community, and particularly with our town council. And we are so thankful for that. We continue to pray for God's favor, and ask you to pray for God's favor for us as a church too, so that we can reach our community with the gospel of Jesus Christ. It really is our desire as a church to be a light to our community, a church that shares the gospel with the lost and does it with gentleness and respect, as it says in the epistle in 1 Peter. But we also want to be a community of believers that are invested in each other's lives. We truly want to be disciples of Jesus Christ and encouraging each other in the faith and involved in each other's lives. And so that is our desire. And so with favor with our community, it makes it easier to do that. And so we're so thankful that God has given us favor, continued favor with our community, and pray with us that God continues to expand that favor in our community. These days, church is a different beast in a way with this whole COVID thing, and depending on which part of the world you are listening from, you may be in a part that is locked down because of this COVID virus. And I have been seeing some videos recently of some people talking about trends in the church. And we as a church don't necessarily want to just follow the trends. We want to do what God is asking of us to do. And God is kind of leading us in a direction of doing what's called hybrid church. We don't know all that looks like yet, but part of that is being able to live stream our services and some other things, teaching things we have as a church. And so we're working through those things, but we're excited about that possibility because we recognize too people in our community who need to hear the gospel, others who are Christians but are too afraid to go out the doors these days because of COVID. And so we are looking at this whole idea of hybrid church. By the way, we don't say that online church is a replacement for being a part of the church in person. There is no replacing the local church. But we do recognize that it's a day and age where the internet can be used as a great tool to reach the lost and also to encourage other disciples who don't have a home church in their area. And so we hope to be a tool in that regard as well. We recognize too that there are many churches out there that do stuff online these days. But whoever God puts into our path to disciple and to share the gospel with, we are willing to do so. The fourth thing about our church is we're doing an in-person Good Friday service. And we're so excited to do that on April 2nd. And we'll be able to go through the gospel of what Jesus has done up to the point of being laid in the grave and then celebrating God's resurrection on Sunday. But we are in an area where our ministerial has decided because of COVID to just do an online service and not do an in-person one. But we see a need, and it's fine that they're doing that, but we still see a need in our community for an in-person service. And we do see people who are saying, we want to gather together. And so we're doing so. We're trying to be careful with following the government's guidelines as best as possible. But we do recognize that we do need an in-person service for Good Friday. And so pray for us as we put that service together. We're excited about that and what God will do through that. That maybe there's some people in the area who don't have home church yet, who are Christians. Maybe they'll be encouraged and want to be discipled alongside of us together. Or someone in the community who is not saved yet that needs to hear the gospel. Hopefully through that service they'll hear the gospel too and come to faith. And so that's one of the plans coming up for Good Friday. And lastly, our church does have a website and a YouTube channel. And we're going to be using those as means, as we mentioned before, about hybrid church. But we're going to use these two tools as means of communicating the gospel and communicating with Christians how to grow in their faith. I mentioned moments ago that I'm working on a discipleship seminar. And I have these discipleship books that I put together that I know we're using. But sometimes people ask the question, well, what does discipleship mean? What does it look like? And I realized that I never really had done a conversation with that with my church or churches in the past of what exactly is discipleship. I know I did that as a youth pastor with our youth, but as lead pastor, I don't think I've done that in any church yet. And we see the need in the church to understand what is discipleship and how do we do discipleship. By the way, discipleship isn't just going through a book, although that could be a tool that can be used, but discipleship is far more than that. And so when we do live stream that teaching, you're welcome to join us, as I mentioned before. But our YouTube channel and our website are avenues we're going to be using in order to do that. And so hopefully that could be of service to you and encouragement to you too. So that's basically what's going on with New Life Christian Community. And we continue to pray for God's direction. So we do have a newsletter. So if you go to our church's website and sign up for the newsletter there, you get updates as to what's going on each month with the ministry for our church plant. And we would definitely covet your prayers. We know covet isn't a good thing, but in this regards, coveting your prayers is a good thing, as we are called to pray for each other. But also on our website, we are a church that really wants to focus on prayer too. And so if you do have a prayer request, you can hit the link on our church's website for a prayer request. We will practice discretion with it. And so if you say, here's the situation, but only share this much, we will do that. And it will not go beyond our prayer ministry in our church. We see the importance of prayer. And we're only gone as far as we have as a church because of listening to God through prayer. So we definitely want to be able to pray for those who have prayer requests. That's all I have to share now about our church plant. But I want to share with you now about what's going on with Stepping Out Ministries. And I had mentioned before, I'm so thankful for your support in viewing these videos. And it's always been my hope and prayer that people are encouraged and challenged in their faith, and particularly when it comes to sharing the gospel. As you know, we live in a world where there are people who are lost. I would have to say that probably the majority of the people in this world are lost. Even in your own churches, there are people who are coming who are lost. Now, we hope that the majority who are attending our churches are Christians, but we do recognize that sometimes people come through the doors who are not a Christian yet and need to hear the gospel. So it's always been my desire to encourage people in the faith, but especially those who are Christians, to encourage them in how to share the gospel, because we are living in a dying world. And discipleship is a continuing process, and that's what this whole thing has been about, discipling the church to share the gospel of Jesus Christ. So again, I want to thank you so much for joining me on the program. There's 5 things I want to share with you about Stepping Out Ministries, where things are headed. And the first is I've been saying for a while now that I've been working on a book, and it is almost done. And it will be available through Amazon. And I'll have a link for that on our Facebook page once that's available. And we're so close, like we're just 2 or 3 weeks away from being able to post it on Amazon. There's a couple more editing things to do, a little bit yet here and there still. But we're so close to doing that. And the name of the book is Crystal Clear: Communicating the 5 Keys of the Gospel. And so that'll be available. It's a really short book. It's only about 20 pages. But it's going to be part of a greater book that I'm planning on doing, still called Crystal Clear, but having to do with how do we communicate the whole of the gospel, and what are the different ways to do it, and what are some of the do's and don'ts of evangelism. So that won't be ready for, the whole book won't be ready for another while still, but this short book, the 20 pages, will be available in the next few weeks. So that's one exciting thing. The next thing is, this is actually the final episode of the Gospel Activist podcast. And we are closing down the podcast, and there'll be a reason for that in just a moment. But we decided that it's time to close down the podcast. And that doesn't mean that we're not going to be continuing to do videos. I will be doing videos, but it'll be through our church instead. Doing some different teaching and seminars through our church instead. And so those will be available as videos and live streams on our church's YouTube channel. And again, the link is in the description down below for that. But some of those will be posted on our Gospel Activist podcast YouTube channel still. So the YouTube channel will still continue to exist. All the videos that are there will still continue to be there and will continue to be free as a means for others who may look at them later, who need to be encouraged and challenged to grow in their faith and challenged to share the gospel. So I want that content to be available still to any person who wants to. But most of the teaching will be done through my church instead now, as we are seeing the need to equip ourselves as New Life Christian Community, but also that this is a means to encourage other Christians as well too. So that will be taking place instead. Which brings me to why we're closing down the podcast. And it's because it's come to the point we are going to be closing down Stepping Out Ministries. And I started Stepping Out Ministries about 10 years ago, just over 10 years ago. And it was a call that God, I believe, gave to me to equip the church, doing these podcasts and being available for seminars and webinars. But God has taken me down a different route at this time now. And it's, in some ways, I'm upset to close this ministry down, but I know God has some other great plans to do. And the good thing about closing this down now is be able to focus more on the church plant and more focus on reaching the lost in our area and discipling Christians in our area. So that's why we're closing down Stepping Out Ministries. And yes, finance is a part of it. I've been footing the bill for the last 10 years. It's been solely through my own pocket that Stepping Out Ministries has existed, except for a couple people who've been donating. But we're thankful for those donations. So if you're listening and you're one of those few donors, thank you so much, because it has helped some. But we're at the point where financially we cannot continue at this point. But even though this is closing, again, you're still welcome to listen to any videos that are on our YouTube channel or through our church's YouTube channel as well. That leads me to the fourth point again. I mentioned before, our YouTube channel will still continue. Our website will actually be closing at the end of March. So you'll be able to see some things on there still. So as long as the website's up, anything on there is available to be looked at. But our YouTube channel will continue to be open for the future. Our Facebook page will continue to be open for a little while too, for another month, maybe two, just as a means for those who are looking for our book, Crystal Clear. Then there'll be updates for that on our Facebook page. But sooner or later, we'll be closing that page down as well. Lastly, again, I want to thank you so much for joining me these last several years on the podcast. And it's been a joy and a privilege to be able to share about the gospel, share how do we share the gospel, but also other issues that we as the church face. And so I hope through each of these videos and the content of our website that you've been encouraged and challenged. And I invite you to sign up for our church's newsletter instead, and have updates as to what's going on in our church, so you can pray for us. We are a church who is still really small, and we are a church that are needed in prayer. And so we, again, as I said before, we're willing to pray for you as well. So feel free to send your prayer requests to us. We will pray for you, and pray for us as we continue to seek God's direction for how we're to reach our community and how we're supposed to encourage each other and challenge each other to grow in faith together. You've heard me say in some of the episodes of Gospel Activist podcast that, faith is an individual thing, but God never intended us to practice our faith alone. God intended us to do it in community, in the church together. And again, the church isn't four walls that we go to on Sunday. The church is the people. And so, church, it has been a blessing to be able to serve you in this way. And hopefully, I'm able to serve you further by viewing our videos on our church YouTube channel. Or if you are in the Onaway area and you don't have home church, or if you're not saved, you're welcome to come and join us for our Sunday services and to hear the gospel. If you're a believer, to be challenged and discipled into faith, and for us to work together to share the good news of Jesus Christ. I'd like to say until next time, but maybe we'll see you through our church's website instead and YouTube channel. But for the final time, this is Pastor Kevin reminding you to preach the gospel to any person, anywhere, anytime, and at no matter the cost.
You have been listening to the Gospel Activist Podcast in association with Stepping Out Ministries. To submit a comment or question for Pastor Kevin to answer on the podcast, visit us at www.steppingoutministries.com. Thank you for listening, and we invite you to join us for our next podcast.